So I've been reviewing SOUNDPEATS products for a little while now, and this has to be my favorite of the entire lot. I think this is definitely the most premium one that they've sent me for review. So I've really grown to like this. Thank you, of course, to the folk at SOUNDPEATS for making this review possible by sending me this demo unit. All thoughts and opinions are my own, as always. So let's jump into how this is built. When it comes to the unboxing experience, this does come with a very nice looking box, and it does come with everything you need in it. Of course, you do get the earphones within the case. You will get a whole bunch of extra ear tips for different sizes. You do get a USB-A to USB Type-C charging cable, the literature, as well as a little piece of paper that has a whole bunch of stickers of the SOUNDPEATS mascot, which is a nice touch. And then when you move on to the case, it does have a matte finish on the lower section of it. The upper is kind of see-through, but it does have this glossy finish. So I'm not too much of a fan of this glossy finish, including on the sort of gold trims that it has, because this will show a lot of grease marks, which it does, and it will show a lot of scratches pretty soon, including this section here that is glossy and see-through. I do wish that they had used a slightly more premium material or finish for this set of earphones, because that would match the way this sounds, but I will get to the sound soon enough. And then at the bottom part, it does have the USB Type-C charging port, and I like that they've retained the sync and reset button at the back. A lot of manufacturers are doing away with this, but it's good to have that in case you need to use it. And then of course, when you pop it open, you will see the earphones within the case. And here the difference, which is sort of their motto on most of their earphones that I've reviewed, and there's this sort of leatherette sort of finish over here. It is plastic, of course, but it does look cool. And then moving on to the earphones, of course, these earphones do have the SOUNDPEATS sort of brand on the face, which is cool, and it does catch light very nicely. The entire enclosure is made of sort of see-through plastic, so you can look into it, and in fact you can see the dynamic driver as well as the BA drivers that sit in it, which is a pretty cool thing to see. And of course, all the openings you will see are some venting ports and some microphones that are placed, which is of course quite cool to see when you decide to start observing it. Now, one thing I do wish that was different here is with the ear tips, because these ear tips do not have any sort of protective layer. There are some earphones that have a little mesh in the ear tip, so which prevent it from going into the nozzle. So this would be, I think, a long-term design to incorporate maybe in the future. So if SOUNDPEATS is watching this, I hope you guys do consider putting a little mesh in the ear tip so it does prevent earwax from going into it. Anyway, when it comes to the overall design and size of it, well, it is pretty large, but this design does remind me of a high-end set of IEMs that I tested maybe about almost a year ago. And I have to say, this does look pretty large, which does make you think that it won't be comfortable. And I'd be with you on that, because that's exactly what I thought. But I have worn these for prolonged periods of time, and it is surprisingly quite comfortable. These are pretty light despite their size, and at the same time, it does not cause any pressure or discomfort even during longer listening sessions. Now, these are definitely wide, so when I wear this, I've noticed the one on the left tends to stick out a bit more because I do have a smaller left concha, and because of that, it will definitely protrude a bit more on my left ear, but it's not really caused any discomfort, so I'd give them full marks for comfort. Now, when it comes to its features, it does come with the latest Bluetooth version 5.4, touch controls and so on, like most other TWS earphones, but it does have some of its features within the app. So I'll throw that up on screen for you so you can see it. Now, you can see the H3's, the earphones over here, along with the battery life and the case's battery life as well. I do wish that they showed you a percentage, in the sense if it were 90, 80 and so on within the app, but this is fine. And then you do get the ANC mode. So you have normal, transparent, of course, which you can use standard transparency or voice enhancement. That's entirely up to you. It works pretty well. This does come with about 6 microphones. That's 3 microphones per earphone. So I mean, it does a pretty good job of that. And then normal, of course, switches everything off. It's just passive isolation. And then when you go to noise cancellation, you do have these different modes. So adaptive noise cancellation is constantly adjusting itself depending on the environment you're in, if it's noisy, if it's quiet, and so on. Then you do have indoor noise cancellation, outdoor noise, and traffic mode as well. I will test this when I go down to see how these function during the call test, of course. And then you do have the double device connection feature, which is cool if you want to be connected to your laptop and your phone, or tablet and your phone. It's cool that they let you disable touch because some people don't like accidental touches when they're using their earphones, adjusting their glasses and so on. So it's cool that they've got that. It does have a game mode that will reduce the latency period a little bit. It does improve it for certain. So if you want to keep it on all the time, keep in mind it might just start eating to your battery. So I like to keep that off, unless of course I need it for a quick response time for movie watching or gaming. And then it's cool that it has this LDAC option. But to activate the LDAC, you have to activate it here. You have to go into, if you got an Android, you have to go into your developer options, activate it there as well. And you have to go into your Bluetooth settings, into the setting and activate it there as well. So check these three places if it's not latched on. And then what's cool is you can go to the custom key option. And what I like is that it has the volume up and down option. So it's cool that it has that, but you can customize it into any of these. So you can actually really, be more comfortable with it if these controls by default aren't working for you. So it's cool that it's got all of that. And then, of course, when you go to this section down here, you do get an adaptive EQ, which is cool. Now, this I would highly recommend that you do in the still of the night. Make sure your fans are off, your AC motors are off, everything's off, because you need to be able to hear what's going on. And it will sort of make a bespoke tuning for your hearing. So it's good to do that if you want, or you don't feel that these are maybe loud enough or they're not alive enough. This might just help with that tuning. And then, of course, you do get a whole bunch of EQ presets as well. SOUNDPEATS Classic is what it's on by default, and these are the other modes you get as well. I like to keep it on the classic mode. It's a pretty nice tuning, but you can, of course, customize it between these other presets. And what's cool is you also get a manual EQ with 10 bands with a plus minus 6 dB gain, which is pretty cool. So you can fiddle around with this, of course, if you want, which is quite nice. And yeah, that's about it for the app. That's what it does with the app in particular. And then moving on to its active noise cancelling. Well, I found it to be pretty good with the way it functions, at least in the room that I've been in with the fan motor on, or I'm near a very busy street. It's done a pretty good job of cancelling out droning noises. Sudden sounds like, if something hits a vehicle outside, hits a pothole, or if somebody were to just clap next to you. Most ANC devices have a problem doing this because it's not a drone. They are looking for a droning noise, of course. So I will test this furthermore when I go down to do the call test for sure. But I find it to be a very good performer in indoor settings. So even if you're planning on using this in an office environment and there's a lot of maybe server noises, fans running in PCs that are loud, it'll do a good job of suppressing that. I think they do claim about cutting up to 55 dB worth of noise, but in a certain band of frequencies. But this also does cover a wide spectrum of noise. Older ANC earphones wouldn't do as widespread a frequency range, but this does a lot more, which is pretty cool. Now, like I did mention, it does have 6 microphones. There's 3 microphones per earphone, and it does have CVC, clear voice capture, for any phone calls you may want to make. So if you do want to know how your voice will carry over to your recipient in a very busy setting, here's a quick demo to show you how it will perform. So I'm calling you from the usual street. I do all of my call tests from, just to give you a sense of the amount of environment that these earphones are going to be trying to cancel out. So there's a whole bunch of 2-wheelers, 3-wheelers, 4-wheelers, trucks, buses, and of course pressure horns on some trucks, which is quite loud. And there is some construction work going on behind me, which seems to be absolutely never ending. So anyway, I've been on the camera microphone all this time to give you that sense of this environment around me. And I'll switch over to the H3 microphones right about now. So this does have those 6 microphones that should help it with this kind of situation. It's not just for active noise cancelling. It does help with the environmental noise cancelling as well. And I just want to quickly touch on the active noise cancelling. Now, this is certainly not the best ANC I've ever heard. Then again, at this price point, I think it's at par with most other TWS earphones that are out there. But I do hear some higher frequencies bleeding in a little bit more. Then again, of all the SOUNDPEATS earphones that I have tested, I think this is the most superior amongst all of them. It's definitely a very good performer. And what I'm going to do is I do want to toggle between the app ANC modes to see if there's a shift in the environmental noise cancelling. So you are sitting in the reviewer seat for that. So I'll throw the screen up over here for you to see right about now.
And this screen, as you can see, I am in the adaptive noise cancellation mode. And of course, I can switch to indoor noise cancellation. So there's a moment where, it lets in noise and then switches outdoor noise cancellation. So check to see if there's a shift in my vocal tonality, because sometimes when I toggle between ANC, some earphones, not all, some earphones tend to put more of a load on the environmental noise cancelling or the active noise cancelling, and there's a shift in tonal quality. So you can check that out. And I move to static mode now. So yeah, I mean, I find the adaptive noise cancellation to be the best in this kind of setting. So that's been the ANC. I'll go to normal now. So in normal, it becomes just passively isolated. So I can hear a lot of the rumble coming in now. In fact, I must say it does do a very good job with the mid to lower frequencies for the active noise cancellation. And this is the transparent mode. So you do have a voice enhancement mode. So I can hear a lot of the higher mids coming in through right now. And the standard transparency mode is slightly different. There is a bit of a change with the transparency mode. So I'll shift over to noise cancelling for my benefit, of course. I don't want to risk anyone blowing a pressure horn and hearing that. So yeah, this is the overall vocal tonality you can expect to carry on over with these earphones. Now, no doubt this will do significantly better in a more controlled environment if you're indoors, but this is the worst situation you can be in. And this has been a quick call demo. And I do hope that this demo has given you a better understanding of how these earphones will carry on over your voice to your recipients in this kind of setting. And I'll see you back at the studio.
This comes with 12 dynamic drivers as well as 2 BA drivers per earphone. So that's a total of 3 drivers per earphone, which is pretty cool. It does have a frequency response of 20 Hz all the way up to 40,000 Hz, and it does support the SBC, AAC, LDAC, aptX and aptX lossless codecs. So if your phone does support all those different codecs, you can select these and it will play back through that, of course. Now that 20 to 40, I do suspect is only possible with the higher res stuff. Don't expect the 20 to 40,000 frequency response with the SBC and AAC codecs because of the compression. And of course, you do need access to high res audio, of course, to really enjoy this. Then moving on to its volume. Well, volume wise, I think this is surprisingly very dynamic, because even at lower volumes, I can hear lower frequencies very, very clearly. It doesn't really sort of mellow out like most earphones do. It does remain, it's got a good sense of roundedness and energy, even at maybe 10% volume, 15% volume. And it gets loud enough for me, at least. I've been listening to this at about maybe 30-35% volume. If you want to have a little more fun, yeah, crank it up to 45-50% volume. It is a fun listen there. It is, more enthusiastic sounding, no doubt. But at the same time, it gets a little too loud for me. So I'd say if you want to preserve your hearing, avoid going beyond maybe 55-60% over prolonged periods of time if you do want to preserve your hearing, of course. And then moving on to its soundstage, well, I have to say it's surprising. When I did first start really listening to it, it seemed as if there were some sounds. Now, these are good recordings and high-res stuff. I've only listened to this on LDAC, and there, at least in my experience, was some sounds that appeared to come, from a little ahead of me, a little higher up vertically, and a little off to the sides. I find this to be a real rarity when it comes to wireless earphones, but this has been able to do this. Now, this does not have any software or mode that you can switch on spatial audio with and really, enjoy that kind of audio. And it's not really needed, because this is very evidently very well-tuned hardware and good hardware. They've not skimped on the gear, because if they did, I mean, it wouldn't have a stage as expansive as this. So this is it's a nice welcome to have this kind of stage with wireless earphones. And then moving on to its imaging, it is pretty well defined. The thing is, if you are using LDAC or aptX lossless, things do get cleaner, they do get sharper. I found myself preferring listening to LDAC and aptX because of that. The SBC and AAC codecs are fine if you don't want to eat into too much battery, and you're fine with slightly more rounded edges. You use the LDAC if you want utmost detail and so on. Now, this does have high-res audio support, and the drivers do support high-res as well. But this, I wouldn't say, is particularly audiophile level. It's sharp enough, it's well detailed enough, And the thing is, thanks to those BA drivers, it's not shrill. A lot of dynamic drivers tend to cut through the ear, but thanks to the choice of those BA drivers, it's soft and supple in its delivery. So even with the high-res audio, it's very well defined, but it's not going to throw daggers at your ear and be overly sharpened. So it is a very pleasant listen, especially when it comes to its detailed recovery. And then moving on to its highs, mids, and lows. Well, there's definitely some sort of elevation in the highs and mids. It's got a very nice shimmer and sparkle. Percussive instruments sound terrifically clean and excited whenever you listen to anything. I've thrown anything from electronic dance music to classical music, to jazz, blues, some 80s stuff, and it handles itself in a very composed manner, so as to not be over exaggerated in the sense where it's not going to try and offend you. It is, I think, a very safe tuning overall. But then when it comes to its mids, it does seem to have something missing in the lower mid frequencies. It's almost as if that range is kind of hollow because there is a separate thing going on there. And I suppose that's because of the crossover from the mid to the lower frequencies. But despite that sense of something missing, it gives more of the impression of being able to handle its mids in a more fuller manner, because male vocals do sound well-rounded enough. They don't sound thin. They don't sound sort of nasal. The upper mids are also well detailed, and sibilance is not really a problem with these, because I think it's thanks to those BA drivers, because it gets to a point where, if you're listening to a song that is sibilant, it gets to a point where it's almost there, but it's like, because it's a BA driver, it won't cross that threshold. So it's never really going to hurt your ear, even if you're sensitive towards sibilance, which is, I think, a very good choice when it comes to the driver. And then when it comes to the lower frequencies, again, the lower frequency is handled by the dynamic driver very certainly, because it is its own entity, and it sounds like that. So that separation there between the lower mids to the lower frequencies is almost as if there's a separate subwoofer in the room, because it's very prominent. It's, in fact, it's very excited to do what it has to do. So much so, I'm not too much of a fan of it, because I myself am not a bass enthusiast, but I can see a lot of people enjoying it. Now, the thing is with this frequency is it's not tuned to be bloated and obnoxious like some earphones tend to do. So it's definitely got a little bit of it sounds a little more professional than being that young intern who's just trying to be obnoxious about the knowledge he's just learned off of Google. So it's definitely got a very nice tuning, and it's, like I said, it's a safe tuning. It'll keep a lot of people very happy, no matter what kind of genre you throw at it. So all in all, I really do like how they've tuned this. And SOUNDPEATS has usually made me think about what tapes used to sound like, because it's always got that element of being slightly warm. It's never, like I mentioned, it's never too sibilant, it's never too harsh in the high frequencies, and they've maintained that like they have with all the other products that I've tested. But at the same time, it's got that element of refinement and terrific dynamics. So whether you're listening to it at lower volumes or higher, slightly higher volumes, it maintains a very good amount of detail and nuance. So it's terrifically enjoyable. And all in all, man, I've really enjoyed sitting and listening to these over all the time that I have. And I would say it's a really nice sounding set of earphones that I would recommend. So anyway, to sum up, if you are planning on this, I'd say if you're okay looking past the materials and finish of the case, because over time it will show scratches and scuffs. It's not going to maintain its brand new look for, I'd say, over a few months, unless you're very careful with it. That's the only real gripe I have with it, honestly, because it's everything else about it, which is the most important thing, sound. You're not going to be looking at the case or the earphones when it's in your ears. You're just going to be enjoying your music, and it's definitely a set of earphones that is pretty confident sounding in its own skin. It's not been tuned to impress. It knows what it's doing, and it's able to give you every single nuance and detail you want, especially when it's in that LDAC or aptX lossless codec. So yeah, all in all, it's pretty good value for money, I'd say, and I would definitely recommend this. Now, speaking about the price, SOUNDPEATS has been kind enough to send me some discount codes, which I'll leave in the description. So check those out if you do want to buy this. Now this does have an MRP of 129.99 US dollars. It sounds like it, but they are selling it right now for about $84.49. And there is a discount on this, I think, for a little while. I'll leave all the details up here for the dates and everything. And I honestly think the price that these are being sold at right now is superb value for money. Again, if you can look past that build quality, I think on a sound front it's pretty good. And another thing I do want to mention is I have at least the more affordable SOUNDPEATS products that I've tested in the past. A lot of them have been very glitchy. I've had a lot of issues with the software, or they just don't respond the way they're supposed to. I have not faced any glitches with this, so something tells me that SOUNDPEATS has been really working on their software and all over all this time, and they've definitely ensured that this, I think, more premium set of earphones is definitely quite flawless in a sense, because I've not really experienced any issues with this in the few days that I've spent figuring out this review. So anyway, I would recommend these, and I do hope that this video has given you a better understanding for these earphones, and I do hope that I've helped you make some sort of purchase decision. If you would like to help support the channel, I'm sure you know exactly how to, but of course, thank you for tuning in for some sound advice.